All right, so Colleen, thanks for coming.
Yes.
We usually like to give you an opportunity. Let's just, we covered some of this honestly already, but tell us about where you're from, and then how you got into Nashville, what brought you to Nashville, and then we can get into your business.
All right. Yes. So I've been here in Nashville for about 8.5 years, which blows my mind.
That's crazy.
I don't know
So
where
you're
that time
post-flood.
went. Yeah.
So you're post-flood, so 2013-ish?
I heard all about the flood
Yeah.
stories,
Yeah.
and I was shown, images by the elders that have lived here. So I got here, and everything was still kind of like starting to pick up, and you were really starting to see a lot of new development, but you were still able to like really take in and notice like all the existing buildings that were still here, and
Oh,
like
cool.
the charm of old Nashville. And like when I tell you like nothing was here, I feel like nothing was here. When I moved here, like nothing was in Germantown.
That's crazy.
I just went into Germantown the other day. I
You
don't
cannot,
even.
no,
I'm like, when did this building like show up?
right. And they're just every month it feels like something else is kind of popping up. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's good, you know?
It's good that we have growth. I feel like there needs to be a little bit more, like we need a little bit more like parameters around the growth, I feel like.
What kind of growth would you like to see in Nashville? Because
Um,
growth is good to a certain extent. What would be like best for you, personally
yeah.
or professionally?
I'm gonna lean more towards the professional side because my focus is residential,
Right.
new construction, remodels, like furnishing
Nice.
people's homes. And one conversation that's been had many times in my industry is like, yeah, it's great that so many people are moving here, and Nashville's like the it city,
Yeah.
and we have so much talent and so many like great minds moving here. But simultaneously, the pressure to provide housing and the pressure to get people situated and just get a roof over their head has led to a decline in quality of builds.
I can attest to that.
Yes. And it's been a struggle, honestly, because I feel like it's starting to impact different people within the industry and I don't know, what each person's like different definition of quality is.
Right.
And I feel like we've seen a decline just because of the pressure to get things done. And it's like, well, we have to like find
A balance.
exactly.
Yeah. I can attest to that personally. When we bought a new build in 2019 in Clarksville, so before COVID and all that stuff, and it was solid. We had zero issues with it. You could tell, like, the final touches of something new take it the longest, but it's also the most important stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And it was perfect. It was a great house. And then we bought a new house in Nashville in 2021. And like just the other day, the handrail fell out of the wall
Oh.
because they didn't use drywall anchors. They just like literally screwed in a handrail for the steps into just drywall. Like I don't know how it stayed so long, but it's like little things like that where they just didn't take the time to do it right because they were pressured to get it out, sell it, and be done with it.
Well, and it's like that's one of those things where it's like I struggle with like I know for a fact that we also live in a time where like technology is on our side.
Yeah.
So a stud finder exists.
Right.
Why don't we at least have like the
Yeah.
guys,
Be like, boo, boo, boo. Oh, there we go.
there you go, right? You would have been able to have a strong, sturdy like handrail, and this wouldn't have been
Yeah,
a thing,
you think they could
so-
figure that out? They built a house.
I know, but
But that's concerning because you're like, is everything like important taken care of? You know what I'm saying? Like, is the
Seriously.
foundation good, or did they like take the same approach to putting the handrail in?
yeah.
That's the concern.
I'm big into like the details and just like taking the time to just make sure that things are done right the first time.
Yeah.
And I will take the time to obviously make sure that my clients are like fully aware of like the scope of work and like the different phases that we're going to be moving through. But then I also really like to be like on site and speaking with the contractor, the builder, and then also like engaging with like the subcontractors. Just because I think a message can very easily get lost when it's
The
passed
telephone.
from one person to another. And I'm a one-woman show. I put a lot of thought and detail into like my work. And with that, I want to make sure that like the teams know that like you can reach out to me, you can ask questions, clarification, anything, because I want to see an end result where everyone is happy and they felt like it was a smooth process and the client is pleased was just the end result and like the whole experience.
And the whole purpose you're doing it, yeah.
Yeah.
So 8 years in Nashville.
Yeah.
And then what drove you here? Why'd you come to Nashville?
It was very
Other
much...
than, you wanted to be a country singer and all that failed and all that stuff.
Oh gosh, yeah, the karaoke bars didn't turn out too great. I mean, who knows? Well, it's funny. Kind of like what I was saying before, there's so many different like people here now in Nashville. I just met an opera singer a couple months ago, and like,
oh, cool.
We were even talking about, what that could look like to come back and like re-entertain that skill from many years ago.
Oh, that would be cool.
Could bring it back to life. Yeah.
We saw the symphony the other weekend, and it was, what's the most famous like symphony song?
I was there.
Oh, we were there too.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
last Sunday?
Yeah.
Or a couple Sundays ago, whenever it was?
It was, it was like the last of the classical series, but...
Yeah. Yeah, it was sick, first off.
Yeah.
And, but there were some singers there that were very clearly like opera kind of trained. It seemed like to me, at least.
Oh gosh. A lot of talent. Just so much talent on that stage.
Oh my God, yeah.
I know there's a part of me that makes me like kind of sad, but I'm sure one day I'll return and sing a little bit more in my life.
Yeah.
But right now the focus is definitely, when I moved here, the focus was definitely on design, interiors.
Cool.
When I was in Michigan, I went to Adrian College, got my degree in design, pulled a lot of all-nighters, and it was just something that it was never like, there was never really a moment of like doubt of like, am I doing the right thing?
Right.
Is this something that I really want to continue to pursue? Do I feel like this is like, it's going to be worth it in the end? Because I feel like a lot of people, when they hear interior designer, they automatically like go to like or like decorator.
Right.
Like
yeah.
Like, oh, Colleen, picked out the shelf, and maybe she picked out the paint color, and then she put the clock here, which may all be true, but my main focus and what I love to like bring to my projects is really, let's talk about like the function of your space, how you need it to function for you. Let's problem solve and take some steps to like situate your space so that it just serves you better. And then of course we're gonna make it look good in the end. Right. But
that's an interesting, because I would have fallen into the wrong category there. Just by the way my brain works, I can't see like what you probably see when you look at a blank room, right? Just my brain doesn't go like, this would be better here because you're going to use it for this. I would have to just do trial and error. And then I would honestly just be like, I'm like the type of guy that just goes, I'll just deal with it not being great. And like, that's not good, especially if you're designing like an office or a bedroom or somewhere where like, you want to do some deep thinking or have good conversations or whatever it may be.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that's really cool, because I think obviously you've been trained, you've got experience in it, but I think some of that's probably like a natural kind of artistic ability. Or what are your kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's so funny, like my younger sister, who's 6 years younger than I, like typical sibling growing up situation where we hated each other's guts, but like ultimately it was because we were so similar and we were both incredibly creative. And almost kind of like, I don't know, like the telepathic kind of like, oh, I can feel her energy. I feel like she's thinking this, and we just like made the eye contact, and it's just like, yep.
And 6 years apart?
Go. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's cool. Usually you don't have that with a 6 years apart sibling.
I know. We lucked out. It's because we look very similar. So that poor Mags, she was always confused as me and called my name like growing up. I'm like, who would like that? Who would want that?
Yeah.
Be your own individual.
That's right. Or
But
like Colleen's little sister.
Colleen's little sister.
Yeah.
Yes.
I got that a lot too, because I didn't get Colleen's little sister, but I heard Zach's little brother.
Yeah.
Because we were in high school together, so it was really like I was just kind of attached to him, and then it was But I mean, I think every younger sibling gets that. I think my little sister got that too.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Yeah.
I was like, if you like, you guys had a good relationship, I'm sure your little sister probably actually liked being attached to that, because it was a good thing. It was never meant as a negative thing.
She says that now.
Yeah. During is maybe different.
During, yeah, it was it wouldn't be the same story.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's easy to kind of like, if you're creative, it's easy to kind of like sense someone else who may also like have a creative flair and who gets that same kind of like energetic, like exciting, like rush. And it's just like you can see that there's potential within a space. You can see how something can be evolved and like made better.
Right.
And that's one of the things I love the most about what I do, is because I know and I can see how the work that I am doing for my clients is truly changing.
Yeah.
What's going on in their space, and it has an effect on who they are too, because then you're able to like not feel so stressed about maybe not having enough space for you and your family, or not being able to like have a certain like dedicated location for something within your kitchen, or maybe it just like feels always like cluttered and just congested, and it's just like let's just start from step one and let's prioritize what you want to see happen and
what you need out of the space.
Yeah, let's build from there.
What do you this is just a question, what do you believe, what do you like, how does energy in a room and how it flows, do you believe in that? Is that a real thing, like feng shui of like a room and all of that? Do you take into account those things? What is all that?
Yeah,
you guys do that?
That was a chapter in the college textbook.
Really? Oh, okay,
yeah,
sweet.
Yeah, it is. But to each their own. Whether or not you want to, resonate with that, or if you're like, it's not for me.
Right.
I can personally speak to like my own experience. If my home office is a mess, I can't.
It's off. Everything's off.
I can't focus.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as like when you clean your car after a while and it's been dirty and you're like, oh, this is so much nicer, and you just feel kind of better.
That's a really good
analogy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, it's also when in restoration we did a lot of like hoarding jobs and biohazard and deaths and stuff. We would go into some pretty bad situations, and you can walk. I have experienced it, and I've never been like that type of person. I'm not really akin to like I'm not in tune with that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. Some of these houses I walk into, and I know some bad shit went down. Like I can just feel it. Nobody's been there. I've not talked to the homeowner. I just know like something was not right in this house. I don't know what it is. It's not my job to figure out what it is. Yeah. But I can feel it. So I think the energy in a room and all that stuff is like beyond just like, what we're talking about. But I can attest to like feeling something in a room that's not there. To your point, I think that definitely applies to like, all right, I need this space to be my office. Or I'm an author and I want to write in here. It needs to have that kind of energy to support that.
Yeah.
The creativity and all that.
Oh yeah. I can't even imagine like some of the sites that you've been on.
Yeah.
Like my worst experience was just, being in someone's home that a big storm came and hit the house, and some of the elements, the interior was exposed to some of the elements from the exterior. So, that never leads to anything good. But
mold
then
and all that.
Simultaneously, it's like the homeowners just let the animals basically do whatever they want. So it's like you kind of get a deeper understanding of an individual when you are welcomed into their space.
Oh my God. Yes.
And it always just like wows me how different we all are. And I'm not one to judge ever, but it's just like someone's space is very telling about who they are. Yeah. Their worth as an individual. I think that's a big part.
The value they put on themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can be sad too. And, well, just so you know, I've been in your house. You guys are completely normal. Your house looks like my house. You're not one of the ones I was like, what the fuck they got going on here?
Hey, I appreciate that. I mean, hey, I like a clean, clutter-free space.
Yes,
so
you can tell you put a lot of attention to that.
Even in our situation with the mold remediation. Whew.
That's most houses. It really is. That stuff is crazy, especially in our climates and stuff like that. Yeah. If you're in an older house beyond like 10 years, you're going to have some sort of something. Yeah. Just is what it is. Okay, so let's get into your business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Name of the business, what you guys do, best client. We can just go into as much detail on that stuff as you want.
All right, great. So my company is called High Castle Interiors, and my focus is high-end residential, either new construction, remodel projects, or like coming in and furnishing a space. And as I kind of like navigated and had different like job experiences with like residential firms, did some commercial work, worked in retail, designing for Dollar General corporate, so working on a bunch of different like retail stores across the nation. That experience really helped me like hone in on the direction I wanted to take my personal design. And I really like working with like homeowners. I really like working with like individuals.
Got it.
Because I want to have more of like a personal like connection.
Right.
And I want, it's a very rewarding thing for me to like, again, take someone from like point A and bringing them all the way to point B, where it's like, that's what they've been dreaming about. They just didn't know how to get there.
Yep.
And so I spend a lot of time at the forefront with my clients and really just like talk through all the little details that they could possibly be looking for. And I think it's always kind of entertaining to me in a way, because it's like there's a lot of stuff that people just aren't aware of or know the questions to ask, right? And being able to come in and bring that clarity to them and just like point out these different things that yes, we need to be thinking about this. Yes, we need to be thinking about that. And just kind of like building more of like a sturdy foundation. I'm like, okay, so through even just this first step, we feel really good about like moving forward with this remodel, because we've already talked about so many different details.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of decisions made, but we're going to make it through.
That's cool. So how long did it take you to like, because that's a skill, knowing what questions to ask to pull out the information you need to make sure their dream becomes a reality when they don't know how to describe it, what to say, how to put what's in their head onto like paper or words. You probably have to really pull that out.
Yeah.
What does that process look like?
It always kind of starts with like me simply asking like, are there any homes that like you've seen and you really like? Are there like spaces or even like a scene from a movie that you were like, oh my gosh, this space is a dream? Like, I'm just like, listen, lay it out for me. Let's start with like the visuals.
Right.
Because very often someone can be like describing something. And maybe they're describing, they want something that's more like farmhouse chic, right? Farmhouse chic can be very like, kind of like tchotchke things, like almost like Cracker Barrel, kind of like, but like an elevated, more of like a fanciful kind of like direction.
Oh, cool.
And so they can be using these words, but then when they show me inspirations, maybe we're seeing a lot more clean lines. Maybe we're seeing a lot more like symmetry. Yes. And maybe there's like a little bit of like that farm chic character, but it's definitely not like the prominent.
But it's almost like it's the what's the piece? What's like a piece in like a room that stands out? Like it's a different color and everything else.
Oh, like a focal point?
Yeah, no. So it's like a contrast or like a fuck.
It's like if you were in a black and white room and there was
there's
like
a pink
red
chair.
Yeah.
So like to your point in that story, like their farmhouse chic is like it's almost more of like that red chair in the black and white instead of their main focus. But they're sitting there saying, "I like this," and you're like, "Well, that's not what this actually even is."
Yeah. So
that's tough.
There's a lot of like, when I think about like the business side of like what I do, like it's a very creative, playful thing that like, you know, working with materials and colors and patterns, like that's all very exciting. And we see that happen on like, you know, different TV shows and it looks like, oh, this is such a breeze.
Oh.
But there's a lot of just like underneath the veil stuff that's happening. So there's a lot of like additional details and just, you know, even if it's like husband and wife duo, like they might have their own separate opinions and like their own desires. And it's just like finding common ground there.
Yep.
And it's kind of like almost taking them on their own little separate journey of like, all right, pull some images, like, you know, throw out those different catchwords if you know this is what you're set on, but let's also then like come together and see how we can marry this all together and
nice.
Everyone's happy.
Yeah, that's got to be a challenge. And
it just depends on the person.
Yeah.
And it's getting to know the individuals too.
Right.
And you can only hope that like everyone's equally committed to like wanting to, you know, get to that final, you know, point where this project is complete and everyone's satisfied and happy.
Nice.
I will say the business side has been very eye-opening for me.
Really? How so?
Because it's I always knew that like my passion was design, and working for other for other companies and other designers was I loved that part, but I always knew I wanted to like branch off and like be an independent designer and have my own company. There's a whole lot that I have come to understand, and kind of like it's all about the business, like figuring out like your systems and your like processes, right? And just keeping all the plates spinning all at one time. There's so many different hats that we have to wear as a business owner.
Yep.
And it's very different from just solely being a designer and being in that creative space.
Right. It never turns off is probably number one.
Yeah.
Like if you're the owner, it's never turned off. That comes up a lot when we have these conversations with like business owners. Is most of the time we say it's like sometimes the idea of owning a business is better than owning a business, because it's a lot of times, maybe most of the times, not very fun. So you really have to enjoy the success part of it, because it's like 2% of it. You know, seeing that customer who's super happy and loved it.
Yeah.
But then you're leaving, and then you're probably getting a call from a customer or a contractor, and then you're dealing with a problem. So it's like those moments of like, we worked so hard for this are fleeting, and then you're like, now I got to deal with all these things and these problems.
Man, you got to be thick-skinned.
That's right.
And my emotions can sometimes try and take over, and I'm like, no. Think of this as like the business professional that you are.
Right.
And you know, just look at it from that perspective.
Yeah.
And, you know, just make sure that everyone's voices are heard.
Yep.
And navigate from there.
I'm with you. I took it at the beginning, and I still sometimes do. It's really hard not to, for me. I almost took like, if a customer wasn't happy with us, or maybe not even not happy, just like not 100% like excited, I would almost take it personally. Because it was like, this business was so personal to me. This is like everything to me. This is the only thing I do. I have to make it work. I have a ton invested into it. So it is hard to remove any personal feelings from it. And I'm sure it feels the same way for you. It's like, you know, you want to make people happy. And when they're not happy, you're like, well, they must not like me. It must be me. It's something personally I did. Instead, when in reality, it's just like, it's a business. And maybe there was something about the processes and systems and treating it like a learning experience where, okay, we can fix that for next time, was a learning lesson for me as well. I had to really get past that, and I still struggle with it sometimes.
Oh, yes to all of that. I 100% agree with you, and just knowing how to, again, navigate your client's emotions, but then your emotions as well can be a tricky thing.
Yeah, and then for you, especially because you're, you know, a one-woman show, it can get a little lonely. Right, because like you, other than your significant others and your family and all that stuff, it's like you can celebrate with them, but if you don't have teammates, it's like, we did it, or the opposite, when you're like, shit, this really sucks. It'd be nice if I could, you know, misery loves company type thing.
Yeah. There are days where it feels very like lonely, 100%, and I mean, I enjoy my company. I'm very much like a homebody, so I am not against just like having like solo Colleen time.
Nice.
That's how I recharge. So
nice.
It's like
awesome.
It's like I need that time. So in a way, like having the solopreneur lifestyle is like,
great.
It's great, and I do have like office space in East Nashville. So if I want to go, you know,
you can be around a team and all that stuff. That's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice.
But this year I have been thinking more about what would it look like to start building a team.
Yeah. And
is it time to bring someone on, and how would I delegate tasks to them?
Yeah.
And how would I just like, you know, as the business owner, as the one like moving all of the needles for each project, also take on an individual or even two, depending on like the demand. And that's just something that with any business owner is going to agree that like it's all new. It's all going to be new at some point. You just got to figure it out as you go, and you just got to keep working through it.
That's
and
right. Just don't quit.
Tough skin, you know.
Yeah.
Tough skin. And I think I try and bring a sense of like peace to my own self by reminding myself that like, hey, life is meant to be like a wave of like up and downs, like growing pains and like
challenges.
Yes.
Wins, losses.
Yeah. And as long as like you're learning from those moments, you're like, ooh, this could have been better. Oh, I could have timed that out better. Ooh, I should have maybe like, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
It's just like lesson learned. Don't do it next time.
Right. And then that next win feels pretty good because you're like, sweet, I learned from my mistake and it came up again and I didn't make the mistake and it worked for us this time. Now it was a win. That feels pretty good as a business owner when that happens and you see the next shot at it and you nail it instead of making the same mistake or making the mistake you made prior. Yeah. So what's like when do you get involved in a client's kind of journey to design their home? Is it like a brand new build? Is that the best case situation? Or is it like I'm, a hoarder and I want to get rid of everything and restart? What's your ideal?
That's a really good question because not a lot of people know when to even begin a conversation with a designer. For new construction, absolutely at the very front, at the very beginning of the process.
No furniture in. Just like bring you in as soon as possible.
Like the way I would approach that is I want to meet with the architect and let's look at the shell.
Nice.
Let's look at how the architect is actually like spatially arranged everything.
Yeah.
Because there might be things where it's like I can see where we might have like maybe it's the master bathroom and we only have one vanity. But I see how there's a gap of space here, and if we extended the countertops, now we have two vanities. What?
Oh, nice.
Oh, look at that. And it's just like, that's where my skill comes in because I can see how we can maximize things and being able to work with that client one-on-one and extracting the information of what they need for their lives and their family. It's like, all right, now I can come in here and it's like a puzzle. Yeah. I love space planning. I love like taking a space and like transforming the flow of it. And also it's like what I'm doing at that time is not only like taking account of like where the structural walls are at, but also like I'm already forward thinking on like how are we going to space plan this? So maybe this living room is like an open concept and the client was talking about wanting an L-shaped sofa. If this means maybe the powder room like shrinks a little bit, maybe we, shrink it like a 12-inch on this wall. It's like we just gained space over here. So I'm already kind of like, it's funny, like there's different phases to the project. So definitely, to answer your question, get me in as soon as possible.
That's best case scenario for everybody.
Yeah.
You and the customer.
Yeah.
So if you're building a home, it's architect and you. That's ideal.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. Builder, he's going to
See, I would have thought of that. So that's good. We got that out there.
Yeah. As far as remodels go, I mean, I've been approached with people who already found a contractor and people who are looking. And luckily, I've made some pretty good relationships here in Nashville.
Nice.
It's taken some time because, I feel like every industry is pretty flooded right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely some really quality people in our city, and my hope is to continue building these like longer term relationships with the people who are looking for higher quality, just a higher like luxury product.
Yep.
I'm definitely just trying to stay away from the tall and skinnies and like the copy and paste. It's just like
no character.
When you come into your home, do you want to feel like this is the same layout as like the whole like the Lowe's display?
Yeah.
In
exactly.
the corner, it's just like it's exactly the same. It's like, well, you can do that, and again, if that's what you want,
all good. Yeah.
Go for it.
Exactly.
What I'm wanting to bring into my projects is a higher integrity of materials being used. So what that means is more natural materials. I want to try and like divert away from as many man-made materials as possible, mainly because just look at the chemicals that are being used within these products. They're not always the healthiest for us, but that price point looks good. So I like to have the conversation with the client. I like to talk about like different materials. I like to talk about like, how is this to your advantage? Why is it worth investing in? And again, like integrity of the material. In my opinion, I think that a nice color body porcelain tile is going to look a whole lot better and wear a whole lot better in the long run versus like a flimsy little LVP.
Oh my God,
gonna pop up.
Yep. Yeah, and it's much more resistant to all the damages of just living. It seems like the theme with you, which is very similar to our theme, is quality, quality, quality.
Quality, yeah.
Right? From the very beginning, it's how do we make sure that, I'm kind of speaking for you, so tell me if I'm way off. It sounds like from the very beginning, it's we're going to do this right the first time. It's going to be the highest quality stuff. We're not going to cut any corners. We're going to take our time. We get in there sooner the better. It's going to create a better product. So it really feels like that's kind of where your focus, truly is, which I think is, especially when you're dealing with somebody's home, as intimate as you have to kind of get with it, is required. If you don't have that in the designer phase of this, then I think it's going to be a pretty big nightmare for the customer.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing you want to do is put down how much money on a new home and it's already fallen apart, like year one, or things that shouldn't be happening.
Right.
It shouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
One thing about me and like what kind of like interiors that I'm drawn to, and kind of like what has built my own standard for like what I want to produce and put out there is old historic homes that are just like these gorgeous, like all the wood details and just like all the trim molding and just like all the character that's within these homes. And maybe one day I'll incorporate some like restoration projects,
Yeah, that'd be so cool.
I think that would be badass to like work on some historic homes.
Yeah.
Like maybe like an old plantation or something.
That would be awesome.
Because I'm all about retaining and keeping like the old parts and pieces that give the space character versus like ripping them out and
then putting new in.
Just putting, stuff that we see everywhere else.
Yep.
And it's like you've just stripped that home of like all of its character. And I don't want to see that.
Yeah. That would be cool to do some old restoration on some like historic. That'd be really, really cool. So let's talk directly to think about the designer who's working for a firm or a company and is like, man, I want to go do this on my own. What do you have any advice for that person who's sitting there right now who's like, man, I love this, but I really want to try to do this on my own? What's your advice for them?
I would say surround yourself with some really good mentors. Surround yourself with some people who are who've got your back and who are willing to and want to see you succeed. I'm really close with my former bosses, and I can call on them at any time. And they're like my biggest cheerleaders, and it feels good knowing that like they got my back. I also feel like I'm just very fortunate in that way.
Yeah.
I just happened to stumble upon some really good people here.
Yeah, I don't think that's stumbling upon. I think that's you created that, right? I mean, I don't think your old bosses would be willing to help you if you were not a great employee, right? Or didn't care about the business or weren't a kind person. You know what I'm saying? So I think you can give yourself more credit than that. You created that in my mind.
I'll take it.
Yeah. That's funny you said that because I asked that question. I can't remember if it was either Tennessee Kitchen Gardens or Plant Savvy. I asked the same question and they said the same thing, which is like find like the community or a group or mentors, like, and then just immerse yourself in it, because that's going to be the best way to learn. From business side and just to get better at your craft.
Get plugged into your network for sure. I've been a lot more intentional these last 2 years of like going to more industry events and just like being vulnerable and just starting the conversation and just seeing where it leads.
Yep.
I'm so a like face-to-face kind of person. Like I'm not as big of a fan of like let's take a video call or let's just constant like emails or text back and forth. Like I want to like have that like personal like one-on-one engagement with my clients.
Less transactional, more emotional with you.
Yeah, I guess. Oh, you know what? I've never thought of it that way, but now that you state it, I guess.
The transactional is just
true.
Like, let's do this, boop, boop, boop. Feels like you're in like a cog in the machine of like what would be a business, And
honestly, like, yay for me for wanting to be so involved and like engaged with the client, but also like I have to check myself too, because time can stretch on. And again, coming back to the business mindset, it's just like you're doing this and there's a certain time you need to do it, and there has to be an end, and you got to create those boundaries within the scope of work. Otherwise it can stretch on and on and on.
Yeah, and you have to have profit in a business, right?
Yeah.
And like that's where like the discipline and like what I've found is every industry has like every industry, regardless of even like lawn care, which just at the surface you would think is completely transactional, but it's not. Right? Every one of these industries has times where the owner or the salesperson, whoever's doing the work, has to flow between transactional relationship and emotional relationship. The lawn care provider has to understand that if they're, cutting grass and they run over a flower bed, it's possible that those flowers were planted by the grandma who just recently died, and now they just, like that stuff happens. And if people don't care about their businesses and don't care about the product and don't treat their employees right, and then they don't care about the product, then you get things like that happening. And then all of a sudden you're like, I'm in lawn care. Why is this an emotional situation? Why am I now having to have a conversation with somebody crying about it? It's like, so I think every industry has to float between some transactional and emotional. And I think people who don't kind of get how to do that find themselves being too transactional, and it comes across as really salesy, and you don't trust them. And people who are too emotional end up struggling in business because they get too involved, and it stretches, like you're saying, stretches out the timeline, which makes you lose money, which makes it ultimately a bad experience for the homeowner too, because now you're sitting there like, I'm losing money on this job. So it's a hard balance.
It is.
Especially with dealing with somebody's home.
Yeah.
Like you're doing a whole different thing. You're in the home, very, very detailed, very, very, emotional part of what they're doing and what they're usually their largest investment.
Yeah.
Right, and then they're giving you kind of kings of the castle.
Well, and 100%, like, yes, it truly is, like, it very well may be someone's, like, largest investment, and it's like, why wouldn't we want to, like, make a good investment here?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we? So, like, coming back to, like, the education part of it.
Yeah.
It's like, let's talk about, like, how we're actually elevating your space in many ways.
And why it's so important.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good way to look at it, too. Because I can see my cheap ass being like, I'll just throw some couches over here, do that. But then you're like, to your point, if you're building a house and you're saying, all right, this is probably where we're going to be for a long, long time, if not forever, do what you can to afford your services to ensure that end product is exactly what you wanted it to be.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Last thing, we usually kind of give an opportunity to... if there's something you wish all of your customers knew before they contacted you. So in restoration, it was like, time's not on your side, right? You got to make a decision. You got to call somebody. We got to get out there, start the job. So that I wish everybody just knew that, and they didn't want to play this like, let's wait a couple days, like you're only hurting yourself. Is there something you wish all your customers kind of knew, or homeowners in general knew about your industry or your business?
Oh, man. Don't believe what you see on HGTV. I don't know. I feel like that's the first thing that popped in my mind. There are deeper answers that I could say, but truly though, like the amount of times where the project that we're working on is compared to HGTV, and I'm just like, but
they're like, why isn't this taking 30 minutes and 3 commercial breaks?
Yeah, and it's just like it leaks into a lot of different areas, and I feel like price is a big one. Just like people seeing prices like presented on the screen and being like, well, this is how much it should cost then, but it's like
they get sticker shock.
Yeah, it's just like, well, let's talk about our location, where we're at. That plays a factor.
The amount of time you're going to have to put into it.
Yeah, it's like, well, no project is exactly the same, so our scope is going to be different. So also let's keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And quality materials, again, I'm always going to come around and say quality materials.
Yep.
Just because I truly believe in like the importance of it. You go to a freaking European castle and you're climbing these spiral staircases, and it's the same stone.
Hundreds
the
of years
original
old.
stone, they're so old that they have like carvings, like people's feet. And it's just like,
yeah, there's like indentation stone.
Like that kind of stuff like blows my mind.
Yeah. Oh, I could go deep into my conspiracies around architecture and modern architecture, but I probably shouldn't because it doesn't make any sense for this. But I think there's a reason why there's no longer developing shit that looks good and makes you feel good when you're inside of it. I don't know. If you like, just look at like what we're talking about, old architecture, the detail just on the, the corner of a 400-foot tall building is got this sculpture built into the building.
Yes.
It's like something nobody ever is going to see, but they took the time to do it.
Yeah.
Kind of goes right into how we started this conversation. Just like, now we don't even have handrails that stay in walls because it's just like, let's spit it out, let's go.
Yeah, it hurts my designer heart when it's like, how have we come to this place?
Yeah.
How are we here now where you can't even rely on a literal structural support?
Yeah, to get you up the stairs.
You're going up and down the stairs. Yeah. So that's a big like pillar within my practice and like the designs that I am bringing to my clients is like we're not going to be something that is going to be falling apart on you in a year, 5 years from now. It's going to be something where it's like you feel really good and solid about what you are investing in.
What you're paying for. Quality.
Yeah.
Well, I just I got to say I love what you're doing. I have so much respect for entrepreneurs because I know the game, and it's terrifying, it's rewarding, it's terrifying, it's scary, it's horrible, but it's fun and it's great too, so my hat's off to you. We're happy that we have somebody in your category that helps us be more holistic for our potential users and potential customers. Our goal is to make sure that homeowners find anything that they need to maintain or improve their home. And having somebody like you, not only your category, but somebody that cares about their business and has such high standards and quality for their business, it matches perfectly with what our mission is too. So thank you for being you and for having such a great business and for giving us a chance and being on our platform.
Gabe, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for having me, and this has been a ton of fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.